My favorite student, good old Anne. She gets everything right. So how many marks each one of these? 2. Okay. So how am I going to mark this? I'm going to actually give you 1 mark if you wrote down the correct equation and can't do anything else. Because I passionately believe, Evan, the method that I'm showing you works well. If you're someone who wants to jump straight to the numbers, I don't know. Patience, young grasshopper. Let me mark the first one, then we'll talk about it.
On the test, we'll be able to think the same thing. We'll get 1 mark for the...
On the test, if it's worth 2 marks, I'll give you a mark for writing the equation, because look at your green formula sheet. Yeah. Look at the front page. So far, we've gone this far. By the end of the year, when we've done both pages, shouldn't I reward you for knowing what topic we're talking about? Yeah. I'm good with that. I don't really care that much about the answer. I care much more about the process, which sounds weird, but okay. The equation is going to be VF equals VI plus AT. Then you can rewrite that. I want to get the T by itself. What's going to drop down like a domino? The VF. Then what?
Minus VI.
We're starting to get the hang of this. Good. Remember how weird this was 2 weeks ago? But I'm telling you, if you get the hang of this, it's much, much better. And then what?
Over A.
Because I want the T to stay. I never want to divide by the thing that I'm trying to get by itself. I want it to stay behind. And in my mind, it's equal to T, but I've told you I always pause and put T equals right there. Now I'm going to plug in the numbers. It's going to be 24.6 minus 3.2 all over 2.5. Bracket 24.6 minus 3.2 all over 2.5. Did you get 8.56? By the way, technically, how many sig figs is 24.6? 3. How many sig figs is 3.2? How many sig figs is 2.5? Technically, I should go to 2 sig figs, but I told you for the remainder of the year, Ben, I'll remind you about sig figs, but I'm not going to assess them, so I'll write 8.56.
8.6 is still right?
Pardon me?
Is 8.6 still?
Absolutely. Units, time. If you got that right, I would give you 2 out of 2. Otherwise, I would give you a half mark for writing that down, a half mark for writing that down, a half mark for the numbers, and a half mark for the answer. And that's pretty consistently the way I'll mark most of these for the remainder of the year. If you can find the original equation, that gets you a half mark. If you can rewrite the equation, that gets you 1 out of 2, because that's one of the skills I want to bring into you. Okay. And also that way, if you wrote all this correctly and you made a calculator mistake, I'll ding you a half mark, but you'll still get 1.5 out of 2. But also, this is why I keep yelling at you, follow during class on your calculator, make your mistakes during class. You've reached the point now where you've noticed everyone's calculator acts a little bit differently, especially as we get to the more obscure stuff, so make sure you're following along. Number 2, is it D equals VIT plus a half AT squared?
Yeah.
I need to get the D by its... Oh, ha! It already is. Well, that's nice. Okay. Those of you that didn't do the quiz, please make sure you're not foolishly writing this down. I'll throw it online and you can try it yourself and mark it yourself. It's going to be negative 8.5. What does that mean? The car started out going backwards, if I was giving this to you as a word problem. T, 19 seconds, plus 0.5, 2.5. It's going backwards, but it's accelerating forwards, which means starting out going backwards, it's slowing down going backwards. That's what accelerating forwards would be. 19 squared. Most common mistake is kids forget the squared. You can, if you've listened to me and gotten a good calculator, and by now most of you have, you can type all this in one fell swoop. I made a typo. And that's the other reason I like a good calculator. I always checked before I hit equals, and I saw, I missed the 1. Do you get 289.75?
Yeah.
2 sig figs, 2 sig figs, 2 sig figs. You know what? It's probably going to be 209. I mean, if you wrote that, I'll give you full marks. I'll go 290. Units, meters. Here, instead of half mark, there's only 3 steps. So here I would give you 1 whole mark because you've already got the variable by itself when you found the original equation. So you did both steps in one, and then half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. Get a positive answer or a negative answer?
Positive.
So this person ended up in front of where they started, even though they started out going backwards. Same equation. Yes, I think. By the way, I wrote a 1/2, but what else do I see in my head sitting there at the same time? I interchange them. I'll use whichever one is most convenient to me at that time. I typically write a 1/2 because that's how I remember the formula bend, but 0.5, 1/2, they're the same thing for me, okay? I want to get the VI by itself. This one's tricky enough. I'm going to fall back on my methods very systematically. What's going to drop down like a domino? The D. Then I'm going to reverse BEDMAS. I'm not going to divide by T. I do that last. I'm going to minus 0.5 AT squared. Then I'm going to divide by T. That is yet another equation that I'm not going to bother memorizing. I can derive it. That's a tough one. If you're getting that one, be a little proud of yourself. It's going to be negative 70. I guess we ended up 70 meters behind from where we started. Minus 0.5 times negative 4.8. We were accelerating backwards. Time is 24. Don't forget the squared. Divided by 24. This is also a tricky one because I have no idea if I'm going to get a positive answer or a negative answer. I might have started out going forwards. I might have started out going backwards. I don't know. Is this a fraction?
Yes.
Brackets around the top. Negative 70. Some of you are still wanting to show multiplication with brackets. I won't mark it wrong if you do, but Kenley, I'm telling you, it's way tougher to track. Instead of negative 0.5 bracket, negative 0.5 times negative 48 times 24 squared. Close off the top. That way I only have to track one bracket. And I've done my speech about those that have the nicer calculators and can do a top and a bottom using your fraction button, yeah? You figured out how to do that? Yeah, it's much nicer. I figure 5 or 10 years from now, all the calculators will have that kind of software. But do you get 500? Is it 573? Is that correct? No? No, I made a typo then. Negative 70 minus 48. Ha! See my typo? Missed the decimal. 4.8 times 24. Is that right?
Yeah.
You get 54.683, 54.7?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Dueck, you mean you make mistakes? Oh, I'm the king of mistakes. I'll go 54.7. I would take, 54.7. I would take 55 if you went to 2 sig figs, because technically we should. Units, meters per second. Now, if you miss the units or have the wrong units, half mark off. And then, Carlos, same as before, half mark for the correct formula by itself, half mark for the numbers, and a half mark for the answer. VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. By the way, every once in a while, I see kids make up an equation. I see this. They forget or they don't bother writing the squareds. That won't work. Don't do that. The physics is wrong there. What am I trying to get by itself here, Jackson?
Yeah.
Oh, I got the VF by itself. Or do I? Oh, what do I have to deal with? Now, you can rewrite this whole thing if you want. Savannah, typically what I do, if all I need to do on my last step is get rid of a squared, I just cross out the squared and add a big square root there. So I would give you a half mark for writing VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD, and then a half mark for showing me that you decided to square root the other side. So I'm going to get this. VF equals 28. Mr. Dueck, do you have to put the squared there, or won't the square root just cancel the squared? If that's all I had, the square root and the squared would cancel. But as soon as I'm adding something else, I have to keep the square root on there. If you try typing in numbers, you'll find the square root and the squared don't cancel each other. So it's going to be plus 2, 9.8, 152, 28. Oh, here's how I type these. Now, again, some of you on your nicer calculators, when you hit square root, it does kind of an indented smaller, and it extends the square root bar. And you can probably do this in one step. But for most of us, whenever I have something yucky inside the square root, I do the square root inside first. 28 squared plus 2 times 9.8 times 152. I hit equals, and I go square root answer button. Then I'm much less likely to make mistakes. Is it 61.3?
Yeah.
Units, meters per second. Half mark for square rooting, half mark for the numbers, and a half mark for the answer. And then we would turn the page. How many got perfect on the first page? Nice. You're getting the hang of this. Okay. VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. How many of you are at the stage where instead of writing this down, you feel comfortable just writing the next equation down? If you're at that stage, I probably wouldn't on a quiz or on a test, but absolutely in my homework. Oh, heck yeah. In other words, I got to be honest. In my homework, or when I'm making your answer keys, I would never write that down. I would say, oh, A equals VF squared minus VI squared over 2D. I've done it so often. Anyways, let's do that. What's going to drop down like a domino? The VF squared. Reverse bed mass. I need to minus a VI squared. Then I need to divide by a 2D. Only then will I have the A by itself. VF 22 squared minus VI 40 squared. Oh, now that I've written this, am I speeding up or slowing down in question number 5? Look at the numbers. I'm slowing down. Am I expecting a positive acceleration or a negative acceleration? If I get a positive one, I'll freak out. If I get a negative one, I won't. I'll relax. So we can make some good predictions here in looking at our numbers and just keeping our eyes open. Is this a fraction? More than one thing on the top. Brackets, 22 squared minus 40 squared divided by, and there is more than one thing on the bottom. There's a 2 and a 96, so I need brackets around the bottom as well. Do you all get negative 5.8125? I'll go negative 5.8, negative 5.81. Is that right? Mm-hmm. People nodding? Units for acceleration. Same as before, half mark, half mark, half mark, and a half mark for the answer. As always, if you get the correct answer, I'll give you 2 out of 2, but if you're skipping steps, you're setting yourself up for some ugliness, because it's going to get tougher. I like question 6, I like question 6, I like question 6. Question 6 is a nice question. Evan, why would I say that? Did you hear me say that? Or are you just the kind of student that notices when your teacher emphasizes certain things? Good, 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 good. You'll be good in my class. Is the equation that we start with D equals VIT plus a half AT squared? Yes and no. Actually, I'm going to be fussy. Technically, that's the wrong equation. And the reason is, what's VI? By the way, what are they asking you to find here? T. How many T's are there in the original equation? Right now, you can't, unless, have you guys started doing quadratic equations yet in math? Some of you have, depending on which course or which teacher, okay? You'll learn, oh, you've done math 12. You're grade 12. Yeah, you've seen it already. You will learn there is a method when you have a x squared and an x, or a t squared and a t in the same equation, but you're going to have to design an entirely new approach to equation solving, and you learn something called the quadratic formula. It's really cool. It works. But for now, I can't assume that you know it. But since VI is 0, really, this is the equation I'm going to give you a half mark for. You can either write 0.5 AT squared, or I like to write AT squared over 2. Because to me, that looks prettier. What happened to the 1/2? Well, there's the half. I could put the 1 up there, but when I multiply by 1, does that change anything? And so, Savannah, you're not going to make me write the extra 1. I don't need to. How would I get the t by itself? The d drops down like a domino. Not yet. We multiply by 2. We divide by a, and that would give us a t squared. So I have to square root of 2 times 240 divided by 10. Can I do that in my head? It's going to be square root of 48. It's going to be 7.1. 7.0 something. No, 6.9. It's less than 49, Mr. Dueck. 2 times 240 divided by 10. Square root of 48. So square root of 49 is 7. So it's going to be a little less than 7, like 6.9, yeah, 6.93. Is that right? No? Yes? I'm not getting thumbs up? And it's time, seconds. So I'm going to give you a half mark for this. Although if you wrote this first one down, I'll give you the half mark. Half mark for that, half mark for that, and a half mark for the answer. We haven't used this equation yet, this quiz. It's going to be VI plus VF all over 2 times T. Fact, I don't know if I've given you this equation finding T by itself yet. But I think we can figure it out. What's going to drop down like a domino? What's the 2 doing to the T? So? What's the bracket doing to the T? Multiplying. So? The whole bracket. Because remember, it's reverse BEDMAS, so we deal with brackets very, very last. That equals T. Now, if I've done my job, by the way, you could put the bracket around the bottom, but since there's nothing else down there and it's on the bottom, there's an implied bracket. Yes, you can absolutely put one there, but I'm lazy. I know that. Is this a fraction? Is there more than one thing on the? Is there more than one thing on the bottom? There is a bracket around the bottom. It's just there. It's going to be 2 times 2,400 all over 5.5 plus 20. By the way, in this equation, technically, I don't need the bracket around the top, but you can play around with, on your calculator, exactly when you need brackets around the top and when you don't. You'll never be wrong if you say, is this a fraction? Is there more than one thing on the top? Brackets around the top. In this case, they're redundant. Do you get 188.235? 188? Yep. Does that seem right? Sure. I'm hearing a phone there? If that's Adam, you don't know our phone rule. You need to put your phone on vibrate. If your phone makes a noise in class, you owe the class Timbits. So now you know the phone rule. Make sure it's completely off and quiet, please. Or if that was Rowan, Sam would be pointing at you because you know he'd rat you out for Timbits. And since I don't see Sam pointing at you, or was it Sam? Was it? Wasn't him? Oh, it was you? We'd like our Timbits, please. 188? Is that what it was? 188.2. By the way, someone asked, when would I take marks off? If you said 188.23, why would I take a half mark off for that? You've rounded off wrong. Okay? So round off properly, please. Don't round off. The fancy word is don't truncate. Don't just chop off the end. You have to ask, what's after that last digit? Is it 5 or bigger? I'm going to round up. Oh, half mark. Half mark. Half mark. Half mark. Last one. Same equation. No yawning. I want to get, ooh, this one's the toughest. I want to get the VI by itself, so I'll fall back and I'll go very systematic. What's going to drop down like a domino, Evan? Yep. Where is the VI? Inside the, looking for the last. Reverse bedmass means I'm going to deal with that VI plus VF last. So I'm ignoring that. What's the T doing? I'm going to divide. What's the 2 doing? I'm going to times. And in my imagination, I'm going to see that that is now dropped down and I've taken care of outside the brackets, so I don't need to write the brackets. How would I get the VI by itself? How I'll move that VF over? Yep. So, and it's going to be just on its own minus that whole thing. And if you don't mind, I'm going to put the VI equals on that side. If you handled that one okay, you're in pretty good shape. You're in pretty good shape. That's about as tough as they're going to get. 2 times 120 divided by, this is supposed to be a T, not a 2, isn't it? Because I, for some reason, wrote a 2 there. Divide by T, Mr. Dueck, and that's what Evan said. So divided by 12, and then minus 24. Oh, I can do this in my head, easy. Most of you could too, because 120 divided by 12 is 10. What's 2 times 10? What's 20 minus 24? Negative 4, yes? Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah? I'll go to 2 sig figs just for giggles, but if you didn't, that's fine. But technically I should, because it's 12 and 24.0 and 120. Those are all to 2 or 3 sig figs. Jackson's looking at me puzzled. Am I wrong? Is it negative 4? Let me make sure I did this right. Times by 2, divide by T. So it's going to be 2 times 120. Yeah, I'm right. The real question, so some kids stick the VF on top of the fraction. No, it's all now by itself because it's reverse bedmass. We've already taken care of all the division multiplication. Okay? So if you made that mistake, you can always do your corrections and resubmit it later. Yes? Any lawyering with me? Now is the time. Otherwise, if you could give yourself a lovely score out of 16, please, and pass the quizzes inwards. So this is the largest survived G's on record. And what I mean by that is we have video evidence. It may be possible that someone survived more in a car accident somewhere, but there weren't cameras rolling to record it. So it's conceivable someone has survived more. But if you want documented physical video evidence, in 1977 in Northamptonshire, England, David Purley's race car crashed and his speed dropped from 174 what? Kilometers. I'm going to do a conversion. I'm making a note of that. Have to change that to meters per second. In 0.66 meters. He had 29 fractures. He had 3 dislocations. His heart stopped 6 times. He had permanent physical damage for the rest of his life, but he did survive. How many G's? Well, what do I need to find first before I can find how many G's? Even before that, what's this really asking me to find? It's not asking me to find how many G's. I'm not going to spend most of my time finding how many G's. What do I need to find first before I can figure out G's? Oh, I thought I saw your lips start to move with the right answer. My bad. Acceleration. Okay? So I'm going to write down yes? I'm going to say I like this question, like this question, like this question. I don't mean this same question is going to appear. What I am going to say is I'll probably ask you to find how many G's, and you'll need to realize he wants me to find A first. Okay, enough. What's that 174? VI? So I don't like the units, though, so I'm going to write VI equals, I'm going to write 174 kilometers per hour, but now I'm going to put an equal sign. We have some way to go from kilometers per hour to meters per second. It's something to do with a 3.6. Divide by 3.6? So 107. Which one, please? It's on your green sheet. Someone said times, someone said divide. You sure it's divide? Yeah. So look over at your partner and just shake your head pityingly at him. Yeah, okay. Which is what? 174 divided by 3.6, 48.3 repeating. So I'm going to write 48.33, but I'll store this on my calculator just by leaving it there. What's that 0.66? Good. How many things do I know? I need 3. I only have 2. Oh. What's VF of every car accident ever?
0.
Okay. Which equation? Evan? Yeah, it's a waste of time. Let's get the A by itself. Are you ready? So now I'm going to go A equals, and I'm going to try and do this in my head. What's going to drop down like a domino? VF squared. And I know it's a 0, but this is a complicated enough one that I'll bring zeros in it. The problem is, if I just crossed it out, I'd have nothing on that side, and that would freak me out. So if it's the only thing, and that's a 0, I tend to track it through. Now what? The VF squared dropped down like a domino? I heard... Huh? Stop not saying the squareds! Kenley? Okay, so it's going to be... By the way, and this may seem really obvious, when he hit the wall, did he speed up or slow down? So I'm expecting a positive or a negative acceleration. And I'm going to get a negative, so that makes me actually... Yes, I think I'm right. So it's going to be 0 squared minus 48.33. I'm going to use my answer button there, divided by 2. By the way, 0.66 of a meter, that's about this big. So he went from 173 kilometers per hour to dead stop in about this distance here. Because a full meter is about like that. So 0.66 about there. This is going to give us an answer in meters per second squared. Bracket 0 squared minus, answer button squared. Has everyone figured out where their answer button is? If not, make sure you ask me. I can walk you through it. Close off the top, divided by bracket 2 times 0.66. Do you get negative 1,769.8? You know what? He's earned it. We'll give him negative 1,770. We'll round up. That's meters per second squared. How many G's is that? What do I do with this number? Yeah. 180. You know what? We'll round up. He's earned it. 181. Far as I know, negative because he was slowing down. As far as I know, that's still the biggest on record. Partly because we've gotten much better at designing safer cars that actually lengthen the time of collision and therefore make the G's that your body has to absorb smaller. But in the 70s, they weren't that good at car safety. In the 1950s and 1960s, they thought that if you bought a car, if that car was in a car accident, it was assumed you would like the car to remain as pristine as possible with hardly any scratches or dents. The problem is, where did all the energy of the accident get transferred to then? The passengers. Now we realize you would much rather, in a fender bender, do $2,000 of damage to the car, but have no damage to you. We now realize, especially if you're parents and you're transporting your kids, you're willing to pay any amount of money to keep your kids safe. And so cars are actually designed nowadays, Ben, to do more damage to the car in a car accident, less damage to the occupants. We'll talk more about that later this year. Freefall. When an object is falling through the air, we say it is in freefall. Divide by 9.8. Sorry. So you can make a little note. Riley asked, how do you get the G's? Good point. Riley, look up. Look up. Do that. Okay. When an object is falling through the air, we say it is in free fall. Free fall is a bit of a misnomer. What does the word misnomer mean? It's poorly named. You can be on the way up and still be in free fall. So here's a tennis ball. This tennis ball is in free fall the entire time it's left my hand. It was in free fall on the way up. It was in free fall on the way down. What we really mean is an object is in free fall if the only thing acting on it is gravity. And when it was on the up, gravity was slowing it down. When it was coming down, gravity was speeding it up. The only force acting on it was gravity. In free fall, what's the acceleration near the Earth? You've learned this already. What's g? Yep, that's why we call it g. That happens to be what an object is going to accelerate. We're going to make it negative 9.8 to give it a downwards direction. We'll put the units, meters per second squared. Why did I say near the Earth? What happens as you go further and further from the Earth to gravity? It gets weaker. Okay. So that changes also on other places like the moon or in outer space. I have jumped out of an airplane. Anybody here jumped out of an airplane? You have? With parachuting? You have? You're my first two in a long, long, long time. Put your pencils down, look up. So what can we handle already? Believe it or not, we can handle an awful lot, but we're going to have to do a little bit of thinking. I'm going to make the assumption that all of you, Adam, have thrown stuff in the air once in a while. I think I'm safe with that. A cannonball is dropped from a cliff. You know what? I would underline the word dropped because that tells me something. Hits the ground 10.6 seconds later. What does A want me to find? Oh, by the way, you can do this if you're ever somewhere where there's a cliff and there's nothing down below to damage. If you have your smartphone, you can drop an object and you can time it and figure out how high the cliff is. Here's how. So what do you want me to find? How high the cliff is? What physics variable is it, Antonio? Okay. Dropped means that we know that VI is. So this won't work if you're trying this yourself somewhere, if you throw the object down or throw it up. But if you just manage to drop it, this will be pretty accurate. What else do we... So let's make a little note. VI is 0. What's that 10.6? What else do I know? The fact that we're in free fall, I know this. That I won't tell you. I'll expect you to realize if we're in free fall, what's the acceleration of any object in free fall? Gotta be fussy. I want to show downwards acceleration. Yep. Adam, what did you say? What else do we know? VF? What's VF? VF is not 0. If VF was 0, you know what? Go do a belly flop onto the cement sidewalk and tell me that it doesn't hurt. If VF was 0, it wouldn't hurt. And I'm glad, by the way, you can see I was ready for this common misconception. Kids always want to say, isn't VF 0? That's after the impact, but VF is that one right there, right at impact. And I assure you it's not 0, but I also assure you we can calculate it. Here, though, which equation? Jackson said D equals VI times T plus 1 over 2 AT squared. He's correct, but why did he waste my time? No. What's VI? What's VI? So if I was really lazy, could I just write this? D equals AT squared over 2? A half AT squared. So if you are ever trying to figure out how high the cliff is, time it, square that number. You can multiply by 9.8, but what's a nice round number that's easy to use in your head if you're away from... Multiply it by 10 and divide by 2. That's how high the cliff is. Oh. That's actually quite doable in your head. So it's going to be negative 9.8 times 10.6 squared. If I was doing this in my head somewhere, I would go, what's 10.6 seconds really close to? 11. I'd go 11 squared. I know my squareds. Times 10 divided by 2. It's going to be roughly 121 times 10. It's going to divided by 2, Mr. Dueck. 121 times 10 is going to be 1,200 divided by 2. It's going to be in the 500 and something range. Close enough. By the way, 10.6 seconds is a long time. Why do I get a negative answer? I ended up below from where I started. This is a displacement, not a distance. And so I ended up below from where I started. Negative 551. No luck? Kenzie, wonky calculator? Okay, and again, as always, put a star next to that question and later on, snag me. Almost always, it's something unique to your calculator that we'll figure out. Adam, what's B want me to find? It wants me to find V final, which I assure you is not 0. Okay? Do I need to relist my data? Is VI still 0? Did it still take 10.6 to get to the bottom? And is A negative 9.8? Then I'm not going to relist my data. I'm going to try and avoid using the D, because if I got that wrong, I'm getting this wrong. So is there a way that I can find VF from those guys? Which one? Oh, geez. Why did Adam waste my time? So if you want to figure out how fast it's hitting the ground at, time it, and then multiply it by negative 9. Oh, what's the nice round number that you would do? Just multiply it by 10. That's how fast it's hitting the ground at. Hopefully, if you're out in the wilderness somewhere and there's nobody down below and you're at a cliff, hopefully I've just added to your enjoyment a little bit, because we do like throwing rocks over stuff. I know that. Even as a grown-up, I like doing that. But now I'm saying you can do some little physics here too. If we really want to be fussy, negative 9.8 times 10.6. I'm going to get a negative answer. What's the negative answer telling me when we hit the ground? What direction are we traveling? I should get a negative answer. If I didn't, I'd be worried. Did you get negative 103 I'll call it negative 104? Which is pretty fast. You would not want to get hit by this. What else can we find? What's C want me to find? A velocity. Yeah, which one? VF? Okay, now we're at a new situation because time has changed. I'm going to re-defic. I'm still going to say VF equals question mark. VI is still 0, but this time T is 3.6. I'll write that down just so I don't accidentally put the 10.6 in. What else do I know? Oh, what's A? Yep. Oh, same equation as we just did. VF equals AT. What happened to the VI, Logan? What's VI equal to? Y. Dropped. Okay? Yeah. So I get, again, a special sub-equation. VF equals AT. It's going to be negative 9.8 times 3.6. Try this on your calculator. It's going to be 36, take away 35.28. 35.3 negative. Units, meters per second. What else can we figure out? Oh, that's what it's asking me to do? D equals question mark. What was VI, Adam? What was T? 3.6. What was A? This V final is also from 3.6 seconds. In a pinch, I could use it, but I'll try and avoid it. What equation has those in it? Jackson. What equation has... Oh, you were so close. AT what? AT what? AT what? Okay. Logan, what happened to the VIT? What's VI equal to? Y dropped. By the way, the next step is we'll ask, what if you throw it off the cliff? We'll get there, and all that means is VI isn't going to be 0. If you throw it up, VI will be positive. If you throw it down, VI will be easy peasy. Just means more typing. Negative 9.8, 3.6 squared, all over 2. Negative 9.8 times 3.6 squared, all over 2. Mr. Dueck? Yeah, Evan. Isn't there more than one thing on top of that fraction? Don't you need brackets around the top? So you ready? I've lied to you a little bit. You only need brackets around the top if there's more than one thing and you're plussing or minusing in the top. Because I'm pretty sure I got the same thing as all of you, whether you use the brackets or not. Did you get negative 63.5? What's the negative telling me? We are below from where we started. Put your pencils down, look up. What if I wanted to find D using VF? I could have done this. This is what I might do if I finished the test early and I had some time to kill. I would try finding D using this, and if I get the same answer as this, I know not only is this right, but this answer must be right as well. So there is a way to sort of check your answers. You're already at a stage now where you're often going to have more than one method at your fingertips. So if I go 35.3 squared, you know what? Wait a minute. It wasn't 35.3, it was negative 35.28. I'll use the whole thing. Squared minus, what was VI? 0 squared divided by 2 times negative 9.8. It would be really cool if I also got negative 63.504, and then I know, holy smokes, both answers have to be right. That's a good habit to get into when you're writing tests. Before you hand the test in, try solving for it another way. Can't be a fluke if you get the same answer both ways. I'm going to finish this next class. I will show you next class a video of me jumping out of an airplane, because I do a video of me jumping out of an airplane, and yes, I have jumped out of an airplane. But for starters, right now, you can get a head start. You're going to have to do these probably on a separate, you are going to have to do these on a separate piece of paper. You can do number 1. You can do number 2. I'm going to assign a whole bunch more, but for now, you can start.